So we would like to also ask you about your 70th anniversary of your tattooing, about your traveling around the Europe, about this experience, if you can tell us.
Well, I'm the most fortunate man in the world because I get to travel the world.
Yeah.
And so I was here in 1985 for the Horse and the Zebra Convention. Wasn't a convention, it was an exposition that was down in Rome, and it was 6 weeks long. And so I just said a little while ago that had never been north of the Via Veneto, which is the north wall of Rome.
Yes.
So that yesterday was, yes, we've come to Florence.
But you have also the big collection from the beginning of your career until now. How was the evolution of your tattooing idea to travel and so on?
The day that I walked out of the first tattoo shop when I was 14 years old, I had a tattoo of a heart with mother and a business card. And I still have the business card, and I still have the tattoo, and it all grew from there. It was like planting the seed.
How was the situation in America? How was tattoos? It was not like now that everybody wants to be tattooed.
If I was that same young man today, I would be a brain surgeon or something. I wouldn't be a tattoo artist. It's way too popular, too très chic. Tattoos, I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's just changed the difference of day and night. I mean, tattoos have sort of always been the badge of the rogues, the world travelers, adventurers and things. And nowadays it's crossed over into the normal society. And the one thing I don't like about it, and in fact, tattooing women was what got me well known.
The women?
Tattooing women,
Yeah.
because when women's liberation came by, and tattoos are really suited for women, I think more than men, because ladies, women, they curl their hair, they paint their toenails, and they're interested in everything in between. So they're stylish. Men, they wind up, it is more of a masculine thing, but when women's liberation came by, and it made the crossover, and women could get tattooed, because it was always that tattoos were for drunken sailors,
Yes.
fallen women,
Yeah.
so it's just changed completely. Yeah, so I got well known because the press wound up getting enamored with as many women that I tattooed, but I'm sort of a product of timing, because I was in everybody's favorite city. I'd been tattooing for 20 years. I was tattooed all over. And which is just sort of something that happens if you're around the tattoo shop all the time. You know, you collect tattoos also. And so it was a perfect combination.
Yes.
Perfect timing. And then all of these ladies showing up. They was getting little rosebuds, little butterflies, little vignettes, little accents, you know. And now they've got carried away. So I don't really, are you tattooed?
No.
Well, don't get one and stay unique.
But we know that you tattooed, it is one of our preferred singers, Janis Joplin, of course. Maybe everybody are asking you this question, but we are very in love with her. And when they told us that you will come here, we were thrilled, we can say. We don't know. How was the atmosphere when Janice came to you? She was already big star, or she was just a normal woman, normal girl like many others?
I don't care how well known you are. When you get a tattoo, you say, ouch.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks ago, we had the 70-year retrospective of my career. And there was a retrospective room that started off when I was a kid, 1 year old, and then went all around
The world.
you know, because I was in the, I became a tattoo artist when I was 17. And then the Korean War came up, and we have a draft in the United States, and I was going to get drafted into the Army. So instead of getting drafted in the Army, I joined the Marines and went to Korea. So I was a tattoo artist, and every place that was stationed, a tattoo shop was in town, so I could get a job on weekends, paydays. That was ideal. So then I got to work with a bunch of old timers. I got to add to my collection. You know,
You had big collection.
it's unequivocally the world's largest collection. In fact, the biggest collector in Europe came to the retrospective. His name's Rambo, and he comes from Manchester, England. And he's got a big collection. But he was at my home and went to the warehouses, and he shook his head and he says,
Yeah.
I've heard you had a big collection, but you got me beat. So that gives you a little, a little.
We were also talking about that we wanted to ask about the atmosphere in San Francisco during the 70s.
Well, we had this summer of love.
Yes. We know it.
You know. But during that period, that was sort of in my heyday also. So it was mixed media of the tattoo and then of the flower children. You know, so it was very busy, hectic. But, you know, you'd never appreciate today until tomorrow.
That's true.
You know, you don't realize how much fun you're having until you hear about it down the line. So, I mean, I had a barber that was in the Haight-Ashbury. And parking places became harder and harder to find because it was the flower children was coming to the Haight-Ashbury. So I finally had to change barbers. And so that was an imposition to me, you know, it's like, so so it was going through an evolutionary form. And, you know, that's just how the buildup. And then it was a great music era.
Yes.
I'm not really a big music fan, and I hate the music of today. I hate it. It ended in like the I don't know, with the Who, the Beatles, you know, the Eagles. I mean, that was music. And then this crap they got going on today,
You cannot hear it.
I don't like it at all.
Who was your prefer?
My favorite musicians?
Your favorite, yes.
Well, I just mentioned them. And there was other band, you know, there was other people. Because it is not the music, it's the lyrics of, you know, I always use I think it's a John Prine song about, one of my favorite expressions is when things are going wrong that I say, Jesus Christ died for nothing, I suppose, you know. So anyhow, it was a great music period. The flower children of were Peace, Love, and Bergenstocks, you know. It was a great period. It was a great period. You know, today, of course, the flower children influenced the fashions of today. There's no clothing code as grungy as you could look, or scruffy, or people dress like an unmade bed today.
And we wanted to ask you about Herbert Hofmann. How was your relation with him? Where you met him?
Well, he tattooed in Hamburg, down in San Paulo, which is something I always like about Europe, because you have open prostitution here. I'm not a total participator, but I love to go window shopping. But to walk around in the area, to have that freedom, and that's where Herbert Hofmann was. And so I was out in 1974. I only met him in 1974. I didn't meet him over and over and over. I was out collecting for the museum. And in England, there was a tattoo artist that started tattooing in 1898, and up until the time of his death in 1953, and his name was George Burchett. And they called him the King of Tattooists, because he had tattooed 3 coronated kings in his career. He tattooed his own, and I got corrected on the BBC one night for making a mistake. But anyhow, I believe it was Edward VII that he tattooed. He tattooed Frederick XIII of Denmark. And then they tattooed the Spanish king. So the king of tattooists. So in 1974, his son had carried on the business, but the wrecking ball was coming down the street. It was going to obliterate the tattoo shop. And I had negotiated by correspondence. They didn't have the internet and all that jazz nowadays. I called the internet the cyber whorehouse.
Cyber whorehouse.
Well, it's just everything. It's going to homogenize the world.
Which part of the world is your prefer?
Ukiah, California.
California.
Ukiah, California. That's my home. And I was raised there. And you have, I live in the house I was raised in. Because, you don't turn a free house down. And I was an only child, fortunately. And so when my parents passed away, they both died in that house, and neither one was sick. My mother went to bed one night, 85 years old, didn't wake up. My dad spent a year and a half of the most lonely time of his life, because they'd been married for years and years and years. And then he was playing solitaire one afternoon. And still had the deck of cards in his hand. So you don't move out of a house that you have that kind of karma in. I mean, everybody wants to make the escape easy. So they made it easy. The last time I cried was when my dog got ran over, and that was a few years before that. But it was, you're sad they're gone, but you're not heartbroken. I mean, if they'd been in hospitals and they'd been sick and agony and pain and all that business, then that's what.
You can't say okay.
But when you just go bingo, you're gone.
Sure.
Yeah, you're happy for them. So with Ukiah has grown like every place else. Once in a while when I go uptown, I'll meet an old friend. I go up and have drinks in the evening with a lady that I went to school with. And some evenings I'm usually so busy or gone, and we worked for 2 months on this 70th retrospective of going through the collecting information. So the curator of the museum, Danielle Boyardee, that's here with me. She travels with me. She's the curator of my collection, and you should interview her.
And she?
You should interview her.
You interviewed her.
Okay, yeah. She knows more about my collection today than I do. But she's brilliant. I mean, she's got a photographic mind. She's got a fine art background. She's a gold gilder. In fact, she studied for 7 years here in Italy.
He is asking if you know also Maurizio Fiorini.
I've met the man. Yes, I know all the dignitaries in the tattoo world, but they're just sort of flashing. You meet them at a convention. I know who they are. We're pre-introduced. We're fast friends. But then it's like two ships passing in the night. Hello, how are you? You talk, have a few drinks, and then you don't maybe see him for a few years. And I was in hopes he would be here. And then his wife wrote a book, or maybe many books, I don't know. But he's a multi-talented man, because I believe that he designs sets.
The last question, and then we will leave you to go.
This is a lot more enjoyable than what I'm doing.
Yes.
So anyhow, that started this proliferation of tattooing. Women's liberation helped. All of a sudden, one day, with women's liberation and everything, and it wasn't one day that it happened, but it built up in the late 60s, early 70s. Tattooing became a kinder, gentler art because of women getting tattooed. And then 1976, they have the first convention. So then tattoo magazines were spawned, and it started getting out to the general public. Then they had advertisements for tattoo equipment, so people could readily and easily obtain tattoo equipment. When I tried to become a tattoo artist, I got tattooed at 14, tried. You hit a brick wall. The old artists would never tell you anything. Now,
There are the curses.
yes, tattooing is a finger down the throat nowadays, to me. But then you got to realize that you're talking to a dinosaur. I'm the T-Rex of tattooing.
But are you disappointed a little bit about tattooing now?
Well, a good explanation of that is that I love tattooing. There's some kind of an atavistic attraction. And in 1960, tattooing was made illegal in New York City. And then the state of South Carolina followed, then the state of Indiana followed, and it could have been a domino theory that could have outlawed tattooing in the United States. So I'm setting out in San Francisco. It was the first time that tattooing ever got a focused media attention. And I think that each newspaper, television station, radio station sent one of their investigative reporters out to dig up some more dirt about tattooing, maybe. Because tattooing has never had, it's always been like a sweep it under the rug, And then, so that was when they would send a reporter would come in. And a lot of tattoo artists were isolationists. They didn't want to talk. They wouldn't give interviews or anything else. But it was a few of us that were media friendly. I went home at the age of 14 with a tattoo, first tattoo. To my chums, high school people, boys and girls alike. I was the cock of the walk, you know? And then, but there was other people who'd been like, I was stung by the devil. You know, and I couldn't, it was just a picture on my skin. What in the hell, all the concern about. And I think I made up, I don't remember this, but I think I made up my mind that day I was going to do something about that, you know? And so tattooing wasn't invented by the devil. It's not practiced by ogres. It's an art form. So to answer your question after 5 minutes of me talking here, why wouldn't I be happy of the way tattooing turned out, even though I don't like it, that it's alive and well, and it's flourishing, and it's more people are getting tattooed than any time in history. Now, personally, I don't particularly care for it. I'm not damning it at all. It's just the idea it isn't. If I was the young man today that I was when I was 14, today, I wouldn't be a tattoo artist and wouldn't have one bit of interest in it. And think about historians. There's no way in the world that this could be recorded. I forget how many thousands of tattoo shops that are in Rome, or hundreds maybe, but it's just, and then tattooing is, you have with tattooing, people that tattoo love their profession. They're just sort of I don't know, you're safer with sterilization and everything else. You're safer going to a tattoo shop than you are to a hospital. First of all, you deal with basically healthy people. Hospitals deal with sick people, you know? So, and they love what they do. I mean, it's an innate love affair. And so what happens is that they just make sure that their practices and everything are perfect. They care about it. They wear rubber gloves, they do this, they do that, steam sterilization, individual colors. So it's advanced light years from when I got into it. I grew up around Italians. And then I'm in the Italian heart of San Francisco, North Beach. And so I've been around Italians my whole life. And they're probably the most stylish country in the world, with the dress, I could tell you stories about Italians who just wouldn't quit. And there's a book that everybody should read. Well, but we won't get into politics.
No, but it's true. I see many young people that they decided to be tattooed because they admire art and they want to be stylish many times.
Well, it is stylish, you know, and people say that tattooing has elevated itself. I think the general public that didn't like tattoos are so deluged with it, they just gave up. Went through the whole, but I was fortunate. I went through the whole when tattooing was looked down upon. You notice I wear long sleeve shirts, and I'm tattooed all over. But those tattoos are mine. I don't go out in public showing them off and all that stuff. Why should I let you look at something that you're going to scrutinize and judge me over? So those tattoos are mine. I sat down and made a deal to get them. Then I sat through there because tattooing isn't overly comfortable. Getting a tattoo. Tattoos aren't excruciating, but they're not entertaining either. But my tattoos they're stickers on my luggage.
Stickers on your luggage.
Well, there's a romantic interlude there of travel. And New Zealand, Australia, Antarctica. I did this upside down. But I've tattooed in all 7 continents. And Antarctica was the last continent I to the trip. That was in 2014. And I would love to take that first flight into outer space and do one.
What is your dream? What would you like to... I think your life is very full. You have some desire. What would you do?
My imagination isn't that large. I just don't know. You know, it's like I've led an enchanted life. I guess is to die at 210 Clare Avenue in my sleep or something, where my parents did. In fact, I'm going to be cremated before I got the plans, and the urn is going to be put in my parents' plot.
You've had very good relation with your parents.
When my parents died, the last human beings died. I mean, they were good people. And they trusted me when I went home on my first tattoo at 14. They didn't, you know, my mother didn't say, "Mamma mia." You know, it was just, they were good people. And so why wouldn't I be buried with them?
You are a lucky man.
I'm a lucky man.